What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here from DataDash, and today is October 2nd of 2023. Well, folks, I hope you all are having a fantastic day wherever you are, because in today's video, I want to spend some time to talk a little bit about the progression that Bitcoin's price has made here since back here in mid-September. And I want to talk about the things that I'm watching across the board that are not only sending some negative signals, but some of which are sending pretty positive ones as well. The type of things that we'd want to see if Bitcoin really is going to start diverging and really potentially being this anomaly asset similar to gold during the inflationary wave of the 70s. Let's go ahead and spend some time to explore this theory that a lot of people are proposing as we go throughout the video. If you guys happen to enjoy it, consider dropping a like. It's one of the greatest ways you can support the channel, and let's go ahead and kick off the rambling. All right, guys, so I won't be shy from it here. I'll be honest in saying that I think at the end of the day, we all realize that I've been generally of the opinion that we're moving lower here in the long term, and I'm not completely deviating from that position. But as we always do here on the channel, as many of you might be more optimistic on investing in crypto and you come here for kind of a devil's advocate opinion, or i.e. an opposite opinion, I also want to show that I'm not completely biased to one side. I'm very impressed by the continued resilience as Bitcoin's price came down here towards around the 25K level. That's one of those 5K interval levels. And whereas we didn't see a crash through there, but rather buyers still holding that level and continue to drive prices higher here to 28K, that is a really good thing to see, especially when you consider what's been going on with the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ right now. I'll say that it's probably one of the strongest arguments here in the near term around Bitcoin. I don't care so much about the narratives that are going on. As I've mentioned before, you guys know this, the Bitcoin bank run didn't work out. BRICS, or de-dollarization, is really not in play right now as the dollar continues to garner strength. What I care most about here at the end of the day is the supply and demand equilibrium. And right now, it seems like 25K is a range where buyers are finding some interest. This was also prior resistance back here in February, a point of contestment in March, and now it seems to be acting as some degree of support. Not to mention, this was also the range of resistance at the August relief rally that was sold off into the FTX collapse. So just from purely analyzing, price action here and doing essentially utilizing the concept of naked trading. No, don't worry, I'm not taking off my clothes, but essentially speaking, looking for support and resistance at the end of the day. This looks definitely relatively positive here. Doesn't mean I'm changing my tune just yet, but I want to spend some time to dive through some key charts here. Why I think this is an optimistic thing is that generally speaking, over the past 5 weeks, or really the last 4 weeks, now we're starting a new week here on October 2nd, we've been able to see the Bitcoin to NASDAQ ratio go from around 1.8 here, which was the same support range back in June, here in March, and even here in early February. And we've been able to essentially yet again confirm that as a near-term level of support and drive up back towards where we were back in August. While Bitcoin is still definitely down from where it was in August, if we just take a look back here, right, we definitely corrected a good another, $1,800 from that range. When we divide it by the performance of the NASDAQ, we're pretty much wiping out those losses back to where we were in July. That's a really good thing to see. Now, it doesn't mean that Bitcoin's not down, but what I care about here is that essentially we're starting to see a divergence. I don't want to see a correlation with Bitcoin and equities, because the narrative right now, or at least what it's looking like, is that equities have got a ways to go before they're really going to kick off a new bull market, i.e., or in other terms, they're going to be moving lower here in the near term. The question is, will crypto do the same? And crypto has generally been following in line with equities here, but the big thing I want to note here is that in the near term, that seems to be changing a little bit. And that's a positive sign here. Not to mention, it's not just with Bitcoin, but it's also with Ethereum. Albeit it's slow and steady, it's still definitely nice to see that from those capitulative lows, especially one of the biggest discount ranges for Ethereum versus the NASDAQ since back in December 2022, nearly a year ago, in line with where we were back in last November, we started seeing some buyers come in here. Now again, it's a far cry from where we were back a couple months ago on some of these ratios. Still down a good percentage here, right? We're still about 17% increase away from getting back to where we were, or if you want to view it in a descending amount from that relative high, we still are down about 16%. But nonetheless, it's progress in the right direction. And I'm going to give my hats off there where it's due when we see that kind of optimism returning back to the market. There is one thing here that I do want to note. Although it's not an absolute rule in every single commodity market, or every market for that matter, where there may be companies related towards a base kind of commodity or product or service. But generally speaking, one of the things that I do notice here is that companies like MicroStrategy, publicly traded stocks that are directly exposed towards the underlying asset, as MicroStrategy has almost become this pseudo Bitcoin ETF at the end of the day with its holdings, as it's monetized its revenue. So really, if you're investing in MicroStrategy, you're not investing in the base business, you're investing in Bitcoin, right? And also as well, the kind of minor stocks that are related towards engaging in proof of work and the hashing algorithm to essentially mine Bitcoin and produce blocks on the network, right? What I find really interesting here, just as a means of kind of keeping ourselves level-headed, is that these stocks are continuing in their ratios against Bitcoin, meaning say MicroStrategy divided by BTCUSD or Bitcoin, right? We're continuing to see since back in July that these stocks are trading at a lower premium. And that's not a good thing to see, right? I just want to again emphasize this here, because generally speaking, we should see that if there really is going to be that institutional demand for a Bitcoin ETF, it's great to see that there's some positive price action in the near term. If we are really seeing that long-term shift of demand here for the underlying asset of Bitcoin, and the institutions we're talking about can't just get Bitcoin, they need a Bitcoin ETF, right? Well, essentially speaking, we should see plays like MicroStrategy, which are readily available to trade. There are no restrictions for companies going on and buying MicroStrategy. Now we should see those trading at a higher premium here versus Bitcoin, right? So if we continue to see these go towards more of a discount or a lower premium, that for me is sending some warning signs here that there's not really that demand, that essentially there's not a lot of crowded pent up demand here in the market to go out and buy Bitcoin as an asset in portfolios. We can see that Riot, and this is not just Riot, I didn't just nitpick here. You can take a look at Marathon, you can take a look at Hut 8 mining, you can take a look at all the major plays out there in the market that are tied towards proof of work for cryptocurrencies. And generally speaking, a lot of them are burning right now. Now again, there is some decay here as they have to dilute shares in order to fund mining operations, which they are operating at a pretty significant loss right now. But at the end of the day, if markets are starting to price in here again a Bitcoin ETF and the optimism around crypto and Bitcoin potentially doubling, tripling, that's what people are really hoping for here. That's the key message. We got to ask whether or not there's actually that steam to really kick off a new bull market, not just see if Bitcoin can come up here towards its resistance again and see what it does. And we got to really ask that question, is there going to be that huge surge of liquidity? And I'm still not seeing that in equities right now. Hence why I'm not feeling some huge itch of FOMO when Bitcoin goes up about 2.53K from the relative lows. So just keep that in mind, guys. Again, I'm not flipping my tune entirely here, but I do want to point out that at least we're seeing steps in the right direction for the bulls to at least have some kind of argument here. The other thing I'd say to keep in mind and be a bit conservative on is that the dollar is continuing to garner strength here. The DXY, or the dollar index, has climbed from around a relative low of around 99.75 up towards 106.116. And this is the highest level we've seen if we go all the way back since November 2022, in nearly a year here. So we're really starting to see that the dollar is garnering strength. And then again, if you're betting on kind of de-dollarization in the BRICS narrative, that's not really what's going to help Bitcoin. I would bet that the dollar could very well find support here at resistance and possibly, albeit maybe not right away, but then generally start to continue climbing higher here in the near term. I don't know if we're going to cross the previous highs here from September 2022. I would find that would be relatively hard. But again, if the Fed keeps tightening like it is right now, we're pricing at a couple more rate hikes this year, which is again still much beyond the expectations time and time again what people had over the last few years. Markets are clearly pricing that in equities now. We could see this continue to climb a little bit higher. But I don't want to ramble too much about the DXY. The other thing here that I want to see is taking a look at the altcoin space. Some of the more kind of defensive large cap plays like BNB. Now I understand there's Binance Smart Chain, that's a big element to BNB, but BNB as well is a utility token for the Binance exchange. And generally speaking, when we are seeing the market start to price in and expect more participation in crypto, more volume, more activity, and more engagement on the platform, utility tokens like BNB tend to start seeing some price appreciation. What I like seeing here, as much as we are holding at support, that's a great thing to see that BNB is still catching a bid or buyers around 215, 220. The problem that I see here at the end of the day is the lack of response in buying. You can see how much quicker and more accelerated the buying was during these dips in the past. And if we can't hold this range and we start seeing BNB go down to say $135 here, right? towards that long-term line of previous resistance now potentially becoming support as we snapped the 5-year long line of support here. This would be the next level to watch for. If we're seeing that, then I don't really see that Bitcoin has the steam to again really kick off the cycle here. You will start to see echoes of optimism throughout these plays if we really have that play here within Bitcoin as well. All right. So again, it's important to just keep your eyes on a lot of different charts, guys. Not get pigeonholed into what Bitcoin's doing on a day-to-day or week-by-week basis. Same goes here with Doge, right? Whether you like Dogecoin, I've bashed the fact that meme coins still make up a huge part of this market. It makes crypto look like a joke long-term, but you can't deny the meme magic or the power behind some of these cryptos and how they can go incredibly viral and how they can move very quickly. But again, we've just seen the Dogecoin ascend in lower highs and lower lows, generally speaking, and it's just continued to go down here, albeit it is slowing down in its sell-side pressure. The question is, can it really catch a bid and start moving higher? And so far, we are seeing the weakest response here we've seen in any of these little relief bumps here in price. Right? We went from having relief bumps here within a single week of 20%, some weeks being 95%, 16 or 17%, and multiple green weeks, to now just 3% here when things are getting a little more optimistic. That's not really good. And that's in the dollar pairing here. If we take a look at Doge BTC, this thing is bleeding here to fresh new lows, likely here in the near term. And it's okay for Doge to be underperforming against Bitcoin, like for the broader sense of it, or for some of these altcoins to underperform. That's pretty typical, right? I'm just saying here that I'd want to see in more of those defensive plays here, or more of those viral plays, to see some kind of optimism where at least the altcoins are holding out against Bitcoin at a minimum before I get really excited. But let's bring it back here to Bitcoin. I want to talk about the ultimate thing here you guys need to keep on your radar here, because as prices start to churn back up, we got to look for the levels that Bitcoin has to clear through. Because if we are going to really kick off a new bull market, there are key things that Bitcoin needs to do. From this point on here, Bitcoin needs to get past this channel between 28 to 32K, the price range of prior support in the last bull market that potentially is serving as resistance right now. At least it's been playing like that since back in April. However, there is one key level that I'm watching for here, and that is around $31,000. The reason why I bring this up here, guys, is because I don't want you guys yet again to feel the absolute FOMO here at this range and not wait for price to actually demonstrate if it has the follow through or not. This is going to be a big mistake that potentially traders can make here in the near term, and that is that if we come up here to 31K, again, like we did back in April, like we did in June and July, and we don't have the follow through to get up and set new relative highs and clear through this resistance at 32,500, then we are likely going to roll back down. And this will have likely confirmed as a head and shoulders pattern, right? If we see price essentially doing this type of pattern, we are likely moving lower. A head and shoulders pattern here is a bearish pattern. Now, if you have an inverse head and shoulders on lows, then that can be a bullish reversal to the upside. But this is a typical head and shoulders pattern. If we face resistance here and we break below the channel, that would be a pretty clear short opportunity, in my opinion. The short opportunity we've been waiting for here patiently, not rushing in to trying to short the market at any potential small downturn here. Right? You got to be able to sit patiently and wait for a real technical setup in the long-term time frame to go, oh, time to place my bets on the table, time to go to the downside and wait for lower lows, right? It can take a long time here, guys. Relief rallies, as we have said a million times here in this channel, can be incredibly deceiving. And it's not to say here that Bitcoin can't go up to 31K. We've never been here on this channel to say that Bitcoin can't tick up a little bit. What we've been saying for the last year, more than a year now, is that essentially speaking, that while Bitcoin might have some nice short-term moves to the upside, it's a question of whether or not this is really going to do what we desire as investors, right? For this to just continue going up and to the right, right? We want to essentially know whether or not we're in a new bull market. That's the question we want to ask, because if we're in a new bull market, it doesn't matter if we get it at 15 or 30K. It matters if whether or not we've got the conviction to know that with a high degree of probability, we can go sizably into the market and actually ride the wave up to the upside. And if we don't have that conviction, if we continue instead to face resistance here at this range at around 31K, and price just continues to chop and fall out of the channel, that's exactly what's likely going to happen here. We're going to be moving down into the close of the year, or likely more into Q1 of 2024. So that's the thing that you need to keep on your radar, guys, in my personal opinion. Now, one thing I want you guys to know about here at the end of the day is that Bitcoin has made some significant progress in the short term. I will give it that. It's great to see that we're holding resilience here at around 25K, which again, if we just draw a line here, we can see was general resistance in the past and previous support here in May of 2022. And it looks like the market is trying to make that support yet again. But there is a lot of macro elements going on here that we need to be aware of here and that we need to be cautious of when we're actually going about building large positions in the market. Now, I want to spend some time here to let you guys know that we just dropped our new edition of the Dash report here for the month of October. We not only shared some unique equity trades that we're looking at, some plays where we would consider going long, some we would consider going short, but outside of that as well, in this report, we really focused in on what's going on behind the scenes here when it comes to financial markets and preparing more specifically for a recession. While a short-term bump up in Bitcoin's price is great, we're focused on the long term, guys, and that's the key thing that you need to be focusing on. So if you guys are interested to get access to the Dash report, our mid-month webinars where you guys can ask me questions and we dive into the charts, if you want to access our Dash report discussion group or our alerts group where you guys can figure out what our trades are, then you can sign up for the Dash report at the link down below in the description. It is a great way to support the channel, and you guys can get 20% off if you sign up on an annualized basis. It's a great way to support the free content we create here on the channel and to get an additional 33% content on top of it with our trade alerts and webinars, and also exclusive market updates that we only send to the Telegram group. But anyways, guys, that's it here for today's video. I hope you guys will consider checking out the Dash report if it's of interest to you, and I hope this video overall proved valuable for you guys to kind of spice up an interesting opinion here about where price may be heading here in the near term. I think that there's definitely the room and potential for Bitcoin to come back up to 31K. These kind of short-term moves can happen in the same way how we went from 31K to 25K and still find buyers. So we can generally see here that there are going to be these kind of short-term moves in the market. The question is, do we have the steam and direction to really drive a new bull market? That's the fundamental question we got to ask, guys. And if you got value out of this video, guys, consider dropping a like. It's one of the greatest ways that you can support the channel. But I'm going to see you guys here, right here on the DataDash channel on Wednesday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, guys, have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.